where are you? Come on out. Director of the girl with all the gifts. And your creative team, I believe, are with you too, yeah?
That's right. I think Mike and Camille and Angus are all going to come out too. Mike Carey Camille, Angus,
So, can we talk a little bit about the origin of this? Now, which came first, the script or the book?
In fact, it was a short story for an anthology called An Apple for the Creature, which was supernatural and horror stories themed around school days. I wrote it, sent it in, and then at a certain point I showed it to Camille. We were working on something completely different at the time, which fell apart. And she said, well, what else have you got? And I said, there is this.
I'd like to point out that Mike used to be a teacher at this point, and then he wrote this.
And being a teacher, all of your nightmares for the rest of your life at classrooms.
Yeah, so then we got together and we all talked through what became the film, and while we were still trying to get together to make it, Mike also turned it into a best-selling novel because like he had a bit of time on his hands and just lashed that out. So that was good. Yeah. Which helped actually getting it made. So that was good.
It was absolutely incredible because I was working on both versions of the story side by side, and they were both sort of ricocheting off each other in really sort of productive, exciting ways. And Camille kept saying to me, I want to manage your expectations. This is never going to happen to you again. You've been saying that to me ever since, actually.
I said we'd never get into Midnight Madness.
And here we are.
And the way that I found about it was, for those of you who probably don't know, the sales company which helped put this together, they also brought us Big Game. And so after 3 films, when I was in Cannes last year, they were like, just wait, Girl with All the Gifts, just wait, it's going to be really good. And several other people, including Lizzie Frankie as well, was like, Colm, this is going to be great for you. And then it just kind of like disappeared from my head, didn't think about it until I was focusing on last year's TIFF. And then I read the book and was amazed by it. And then I put it all together like, wait a minute, this is what they were talking about last year. And so I was really adamant on seeing it because, I mean, if you guys were able to capture how great the book was, then we're assuming for making this. So, congratulations. Now, the thing that I want to talk to you about is the casting, because there was kind of some reverse choices, because the teacher in the book is black and the student is Caucasian, so we kind of flipped it there. It was interesting because there's an online, someone was like, oh, I just read that they whitewashed this book. I'm like, you don't know.
I mean, it's not the whitest movie ever made, but I mean, but what actually happened is, I think in the script, it's fair to say, I've not read the book, so I was going to wait until we'd finished the film and then read the book. But what actually happened? Sorry, he gave me a signed copy last week. I feel really bad. But what actually happened was in the script, the only character who actually had a race originally was in the first draft. It mentioned Melanie's very pale skin. And I said, I just think it'd be really good to have. We talked about it and was like, let's actually have no mention of any race and encourage the casting team to bring people of every possible ethnic diversity in for all the parts. And we pushed them quite hard to do that and to have strong contenders for all the roles. And so that's what we did. And we cast according to the best actors for the part. And I think we went up with quite a diverse film. Good, okay, moving on.
And then locations at the end, kind of the overgrown London, like where was that all shot?
Well, we looked at a lot of different international locations where we got into kind of ruin porn, and we'd all sit around and look at all these kind of like urban exploration books and stuff. The main kind of vista shots are a combination of photographic elements from London, factories in Birmingham where we shot stuff and kind of derelict locations, and then Pripyat, which is the town of Chernobyl. So we sent a drone unit. I mean, I didn't go. We sent a drone unit to Pripyat, and they filmed the Viet said Barker, who's still fine. The visual effects. Yeah, we sent him to Pripyat, and so it's a combination of all of those things. And the idea with the visual effects was always to try and do stuff that was photographically real, rather than doing like, I mean, I quite like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but that wasn't the aesthetic that we were striving for. We were trying to do something that felt more naturalistic and was kind of pretty in a kind of child's eye view of something kind of like threatening being kind of fairy tale-ish, if that makes sense.
Do we have any questions from the audience here? Don't be shy. Yes, yell it out.
Really faithful adaptation in a lot of ways, but I was wondering if you guys could speak to some of the changes you did make and why you did them.
The adaptation is really faithful, but there are some changes, such as the Marauders are not in this.
The Junkers, yeah, and that was something that Colm said quite early on. If you put the Junkers in here, this is like survivalists, refuseniks who stay outside of Beacon and just live in the wild on what they can catch and keep. Colm said, yeah, we've seen them before in films like Mad Max, and a lot of the Mad Max movies are very cool. It sets up false expectations for the story that we were trying to tell. The other crucial difference, I think, is that the novel has lots of different points of view. We made the decision very early that for the movie we would stay with Melanie throughout, because it was her story and it stands or falls by her. So she's been on screen for.
Yeah, there's one scene in there which she is technically in, but we don't have the bit of her being in, because the scene between Justin and Parks when they're drinking, we pull back, and eventually we did originally pan around and find her listening, but we kind of, anyway, we folded that together in the end.
Yeah, I think it's because the novels and movies work differently. It's very easy in the novels to catch the interiority of multiple characters, to keep that sort of ricocheting and jumping around. In a movie, I think it works differently and it has a different result, a different end product. Do you have any other differences in mind?
Miss Justin and the Sergeant in the book, there's quite a different relationship.
They do.
I actually regret the bit where the scene where Justin and Parks had sex. I think it was, in some ways, it was like playing to something really predictable. I prefer this version. I also prefer this version of the relationship between Justin and Colm, which kind of grew through the different drafts, didn't it? The sense of them as sort of like equals, and the sort of begrudging respect that Colm gives Justin there, in spite of the fact that they're coming at everything from completely different perspectives.
It's fair to say we talked about the Bechdel test a fair bit, like early on, and just figuring out how that worked in terms of the relationships within the characters. So it felt like it would be interesting to do something that wasn't a romantic relationship between it. Although what the actors were thinking, that's them.
And the relationship between Parks and Melanie is much more important than the relationship between Parks and Justin.
And it's the only relationship in the original short story. There's no Justino, there's no Caldwell, it's just Parks and Melanie in the original short story.
There is a sympathetic teacher, but she has a much smaller role. Yeah.
And the biggest love story in it is the love story between Justino and Melanie, not anyone else, and also not dilated that.
Anyone else here?
Back here.
Where, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask about the kids and the casting of the kids, and if there were any restrictions, like restrictions due to, I guess, child labor laws.
Child labor question. How did you wrangle that?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult because we first of all we obeyed the law.
Yes, we did.
But that's quite important. I'm not saying that just as a joke, but like also you can have 5.5 hours performance time with a child on screen in the UK, and you can have 9.5 hours at the workplace. And so there was another little girl who was actually in the film at the end, Mia, who's the last girl that Melanie kind of pulls the rope off and gets her to sit down at the very end. Before she had a bit actually in screen. She's on screen a fair bit, but just the back of her head in a wig. So like, But yeah, so she was like the double because we couldn't make our way through a shoot with this kid and everything. But we had a really good first assistant director who also kind of helped figure us find a way through that, even when things were difficult.
And was all have to be chaperone on rotation all the time. So it was mostly parents who did that, so you only had.
I thought you were going to say it was mainly parents who had to be chaperones.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah, that's also true.
How do you direct them? I mean, the scene where you first have the reveal, the scene where you first have the reveal where they're all like snapping.
Yeah, so we actually did quite a lot of workshopping with the kids. I like to think that the thing that I'm happiest about the film is actually the experience that the two groups of kids who became the classroom kids and the feral kids had in the process of making the film, because that was just like an awesome thing to do for a bunch of people's lives, because they fucking loved it. And so we would have these workshops where they would be down at either end of the corridors and they got a slightly tribal thing with each other. And the feral kids, I mean, they did a lot of like sort of picking each other's noses and lying about and slapping feet and just learning to be kind of, you know, break down the space so that they're like, you know, like that's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it? Well, I know it's nice, but you know, and so for kids like of that age, it's like 10 times that. So figuring a way to help them break that down, and we worked with a movement director and figured out like about kind of more analytic movement and stuff. And so that was, you know, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, they had a great time. And the snapping action, teaching that. I mean, the little girl who everyone thinks is a boy at the front, who's the one that goes first when parks, because they all have shaved heads, so they all look like boys, because that's what we do to kids. But they grow their hair so they grow. But when he does the thing and she goes at him for the first time, she was like just the best of the kids at biting. So that's why she sits in that place and watches. She was really good at it, yeah.
The kids and their families are still in touch. They meet up quite regularly. Lots of them were sort of cast.
It's not a support group, it's like friendly.
Any more questions here? Yes, the jean jacket.
Hi, great movie. I'm just wondering how you got was involved in this. Do you like sell it like she loves like wood bunnies and skinny dogs?
Yeah, she was just like, are there any animals that always the center of the script, and she read it and she liked it, and you know, it was. We'd managed to get like there was a little bit of a buzz going. Some people had read it and liked it, and yeah, we were really lucky. We were like, yeah, we could try her, you know, because she's awesome. But yeah, we were just lucky.
She said afterwards that she just made the decision that she was only 10 pages in, which is very cool.
Couldn't be arsed reading the rest.
She didn't know there were dead bunnies.
All right, the green shirt and then the person behind the green shirt, in order. Yeah. Any comments on the soundtrack?
Did you like it? It was made by a guy who has become a Canadian. That's an actual fact, yeah. So he's Cristobal Tapia de Vere, who did the music for a British show called Utopia. Yeah. And we talked about ritual and children and story, and we talked about I think the best thing to storytell about the soundtrack is presenting the last track of the end title music.
That was amazing. So we were doing post-production in Berlin, and Christo was in Montreal, and we'd Skype with him, and he would do a little show for us. So he'd play the song, and we'd obviously have picture for the film, and he'd also put his cat on a velvet red pillow and make it fly to the music. And then we'd see some sort of African puppet appear, and it was a witch that was playing the drums. And basically we had the Christo show, and it was amazing.
And Playboy ears, he had Playboy ears. He's got a big beard, it was ridiculous.
And there's a question, yes, behind the green hoodie. Yep.
First of all, great job, I loved it. And so my question is, with all humans being turned into hungry, would you say that the children would have made like a farm or something for food? What would they have done?
Yes, that's a proper fanboy question, fangirl question. That's like awesome. You got that.
No, you got to.
Well, the farming is like they don't farm because they need raw protein. They live off protein, live protein. But there's some debate amongst members of the cast, like Gemma, about whether they grow food for Miss Justino in the glass box at the end, because otherwise she might be a bit screwed. But interestingly enough, the reason that Beacon went down, oh, do this? Yeah, okay. The reason that Beacon went down, we reckon, is Gallagher was in charge of the carrot farming at Beacon prior to his departure to the base where the hotel Echo, where the kids go down. And his departure led to the Great Carrot Blight at Beacon, which led to eyesight deficiency due to lack of vitamin D. You couldn't shoot the hungries, and that's, yeah. So, he kind of really fucked that up as well.
And one last question here, yes.
I think Melanie is one of the greatest movie monsters ever, and she's scaring me at the end of the movie. Was that the point to make you kind of feel like a Hannibal Lecter smile at me because she has sinister?
I mean, is she a monster or is she a savior?
Well, that's the question, hopefully. I mean, I love her even at the end, and she, you know, I think, yeah, she's scary, but you have to make your mind up about that. That's your job. Like every film is a collaboration between filmmakers and an audience.
One of the inspirations for her was the creature in Frankenstein, who is both a monster and an innocent. And then he becomes a monster because of the way he treats it by its creation.
All right, put your hands together. Thank you very much. And keep your eyes out in the street because there's a certain promotion going on for Sadako versus Kayako. If you see a clump of hair on the sidewalk, maybe take a picture and tweet about it. And also, there's an industry thing we did today. You can find it on most likely the TIFF Facebook page. I did a masterclass performance with Mark Corvin, the composer of The Witch. And so they've got that video on there if you want to see more things about scary music. And we'll see you for Autopsy of Jane Doe tomorrow night. Thank you so much.